This is a video that I never thought I was going to have to make as a wedding planner. And to be totally candid, I think I've started it at least 7 or 8 times today. And there was never a good way to start it. There was no beginning that made sense. And so I decided that I'm just going to talk because this community has always been founded in a sense of truth and honesty and authenticity because our connection, yours and mine, has to be absolute. And you come here for the truth, unvarnished and warts and all, no matter how difficult it is to hear sometimes. And so, whether you are an established wedding professional who comes here to continue to learn, whether you're somebody new breaking into the industry, or maybe you're a client who's trying to decide whether or not I'm the right person for you, the only way that it works is if we're honest. And so this video is going to probably be long, hopefully not too long. There's going to be some rambling and some stream of consciousness. I'm going to give you information and insight. And my hope is that at the end, you stick with me and you're still here and that we continue to move forward together, making the world a more beautiful place. I understand if you aren't, and I'm okay with that. But I really want this to open up lines of communication, and I hope that you'll allow me to do that. So let's start with this. On October 30th, about 2 weeks ago, I was on a conference call and I started getting text messages from a friend saying, "Hey, I know you're a big girl, but I am about to jump in and comment on this. And I just want to make sure that you're okay with it." And I looked at it for 2 seconds and I just kind of, shot back a question mark. And she wrote back, "Marcy." And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she said, "Have you not looked at your messages?" And I was in the middle of power planning a wedding that I had gotten called. And I only had like 29 days to do this $1 million wedding in Mexico. And so I hadn't been as present on social media. And I manage my own social. If you DM me, if you text me, I'm the only one who touches it. And so I get back to everyone, but I was lagging a little. And so I said, "No." And she said, "You need to go and look." And I looked at my DMs on Instagram. I didn't see anything. And she said, "No, you need to check your threads." And in that moment, I knew what happened because a few days prior, I had come home and caught the end of Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. And I watched the performance of God Bless the USA. And I was incredibly moved and I was emotional and I thought it was beautiful. And I happened to be on threads and I just wrote, like, yeah, I teared up a little bit and I have such hope for the election. And I'm really, really, just hopeful about the state of our country. And that's all I wrote. That it was a beautiful, moving performance, and I was hopeful. To put this in context, yes, I am a creative conservative. Yes, I am a Trump supporter. To put it in greater context, I always viewed myself as a libertarian. I always viewed myself as somebody who has common sense, who was middle of the road, and who was generally pretty apolitical. But going into the 2016 election, my son, who was really tiny at the time, he came home and pretty unceremoniously announced at the dinner table that Donald Trump was bad. And I was shocked. I was like, what do you mean? Where did you hear that?" And he said that his teacher told him. And I was aghast because, number one, I don't want a teacher giving my son their own personal opinion just on anything, not a teacher's role in my place. And number two, I was raised in Trump's New York. And to me, he was iconic. He changed the skyline. He was a cultural touchstone. He was in movies. He was in TV. He was iconic. I knew him to be somebody who, marched with Don King, who immediately went to ground zero to help first responders, of which 3 of them were my cousins. I knew that he supported our police, and my dad was a cop. I knew a Donald Trump in terms of the media that was very different from what was being portrayed. And I thought that it was spectacular and amazing and generous that this billionaire who lived a life of luxury and who could have and do anything was willing to give it all up and put himself and his family in the crosshairs of the media the way he did, because he believed so greatly that the country needed to make a change. And I said to my son, what makes him bad? And why are you believing what you hear? Because of my own personal experience with the government, because of my own experience with the news and the media and the paper, I don't trust any of them. And so I always looked for my own sources and I always did my own research. And I said to him, why are you believing just what they say? And I said, let's do an experiment, because I wanted to teach my son not about politics. I wanted to teach my son to question the establishment. I wanted to teach my son to do his research and to make up his own mind. I said, go into school and ask your teacher what the 5 most pressing topics are going into this election. And then as a family, we are going to research these topics and we're all going to vote on them, mommy, daddy, and the 2 kids. And when we did, we researched everything. We didn't tell the kids who thought what. We just gave them information and said, what do you think? What do you think about the border? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about taxes? What do you think about all the things? And what we found is that my son specifically was a little Alex P. Keaton, hyper conservative, that my daughter was more right leaning, but very socially liberal. But that if my kids in that moment had the ability to vote, that they would have both voted for Donald J. Trump. And so my son said, I know I'm not old enough to vote, but on election day, can we all go and vote together? Will you take me with you? And we thought it was a great opportunity to show them part of the democratic process. And when I went to Engage that year, Engage, for those of you who don't know, but if you're here, you do. Engage is a luxury wedding summit. I have been part of the Engage community since 2012. It was a foundational element of my business. Engage taught me how not to think as a hobbyist. Engage taught me how to think like a business. It changed my business, and changing my business changed my life, and therefore it changed the life of my husband and my children. I have nothing but respect for what it did for me, especially in those early days, and the relationships that it helped me forge and the information that it exposed me to. As an attendee and as a speaker, I have been on the record for over a decade in terms of what Engage has meant to me. But I went to Engage, I was a speaker, and I was telling people about this project that I did with my kids. And it was made very, very clear that supporting Donald Trump was not an acceptable stance, at least not publicly. And Marcy Bloom got up on stage and said rather forcefully from the main stage, if anyone in here supports that blank, don't talk to me, don't look at me, you're racist, you're misogynistic, you're a homophobe, you're a xenophobe, all of the phobes, all of the ist. And I was like, first of all, I've known Marcy since 2012. And there's an element of my life and some things about my personal life that Marcy's aware of that we had kind of bonded over. There were things that we had a great connection on. And I thought to myself, well, she can't possibly mean me. She can't, like, she knows me personally. This is pontificating. This is grandstanding. Why would she say these things? But as time went on throughout the weekend, there were people who made it clear that they would rather not sit with me, that they would rather not talk to me. We can't believe that you would vote for him. How could you come here? How could you say these things? And it became not uncomfortable, but I felt like this is strange. I've never in my life seen something where people have this visceral of a reaction, but Donald Trump won, he'll be president, we'll move on. until the next engage. And it's all not my president. And we're not going to say his name and we're going to call him 45. And I thought, this is odd. We're going to impeach him and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I started saying things like, maybe we should focus on the business. Let's focus on the education. Let's talk about weddings. Like, you don't agree. I don't agree. I'm not here to fight. Going to engage, the investment to go to engage can cost $10,000. As a speaker, you're not investing that. But for people to go to engage, it can cost them $7,000, $10,000. I don't think anyone who's investing that kind of money is going to hear two speakers argue over how they vote. I think they're going because they want to make their business better. I think they're going because they want to meet people. I think they're going because they want to be inspired and educated and delighted because they want to go home with actionable items. And so I thought to myself, I'm getting a little disillusioned with all of this. And then I learned that there was a push and a movement, not so much with Engage, but industry wide, that creative conservatives were not necessarily being welcomed in a lot of different organizations. And again, this was not specifically Engage, but in a lot of organizations, in a lot of speaking forums, in a lot of places. And there was a specific group of people that were trying to blackball anyone who was openly conservative. Now, I was out. I was outed as a conservative. And because I don't believe in hiding, I don't believe in putting it on my business card. I don't think that there's any need to. It's my beliefs are mine. And yes, they color how I move through the world. And I am sure that they impact my art. I will say that if I do 5 events a year, I maybe get one left leaning client every 2 to 3 years. And I don't necessarily know why that is, but I don't ask my clients about their political affiliation. They don't ask me about mine. Although a lot of times when we see that we're liking the same post on Instagram, it comes up and then we can get into it, but it's not a part of the intake process. Um, I, I respect everyone's right to believe what they want to believe, the same way that I think everyone has the right to freedom of religion, the same way that I think that everyone has the right to love who they're going to love, the same way that I think that everyone has the right to live and pursue their happiness. I am just not interested in vilifying someone's personal point of view. I'm always interested in learning. I'm always interested in debating. I'm always interested in talking. But the arguing and the vitriol and the hate, it just feels like a cheap emotion. And I don't have any interest in that. And so I started to stay away from it and just kind of thought like, it'll pass. And in 2019, I attended my last Engage. My father had passed away, and I was already scheduled and announced to be a speaker. And it was literally 1 month after he had died. And I had given my word, I had made a commitment, and I am really big on honoring those. And I also knew it's where he would want me to be. He was so proud of me when I would get to go and to speak. And it was, the next president, in terms of, the election had happened and Biden was coming into office, and it had this renewed sense of politics. And we also kind of we were on the cusp. We didn't know about COVID yet, but COVID was going to start the next year. And I just needed a minute. I needed a break. And so in 2020, even though I was signed up, when COVID hit, I made the decision of saying, I need a break. I needed to reset. I needed to reset my life. I needed to reset with my family. I had a lot to take care of with my mom and my kids. I was moving, which was, huge. And I had a lot of those big life things. And then as we came out of COVID, Engage started to move towards a much more international forum. and they were doing things that were in Italy and in France and in England and in Africa, places that I didn't necessarily see my business moving to. And so if I don't plan to grow my business into those places, then I don't necessarily see value in attending those conferences. And the truth is, I don't travel that far from my husband and my children as my own personal decision. I don't I don't leave my husband and go that far. I don't leave my children for that long. It's my own way of living. And so I haven't been as engaged in the community. But recently, I reached out to Rebecca and Catherine and said, I love everything you're doing. I love that you're in People magazine. I love what you did in Nemacolin. I really wanted to attend, but it conflicted with my schedule and with my events. And I just wanted you to know that I'm still cheering you on from afar. I'm such a fan. Congratulations on all the great press. And both of them wrote me back and said, thank you so much. We miss you. We'd love to have you back. Please let us know when you can come. And I thought, this is great. Maybe I'll go in December. Maybe I'll go to Florida and see if I could get to Amelia Island. I think I would love to do that. And so in the back of my head, I was thinking, I'm going to reach out and see if I can go to Amelia Island. Now, this is going to come full circle for you. So in this time, I pick up these last couple of events, and I am really working on this wedding. I go to meet with my clients. I come back and I see the performance from Lee Greenwald, and he sings God Bless the USA. And I walk in and I watch it, and I'm just so moved because from 2016 until now, yes, I have definitely become much more conservative than I was. Yes, I have voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Yes, I am a creative conservative in an industry that is not accepting of having a conservative viewpoint. And I sit back and I watch my colleagues, my vendors, my partners, my contemporaries go out and walk for Hillary and stump for Kamala and do fundraisers for Biden. I watch as they wear Harris Walsh t-shirts, and while they say, not my president, and while they post things like, don't, vote unless you vote wrong or unless you're stupid. And they are all allowed and given the freedom and encouraged to speak their truth. But there's this tremendous group of us that are silent. They call us the silent majority for a reason. And part of it is because we just don't want to fight. Part of it is because we're busy and we're working. And part of it is because a lot of us have been beaten up and bullied and are scared, and we just don't want to get into it. But in this moment of being really emotionally engaged and being on threads, I wrote, yeah, I'm tearing up watching this, and I'm really hopeful about the election. And fast forward 2 days, and apparently Marcy Bloom made the decision, because remember, we've known each other since 2012, to go on and comment and say, moved to tears. Why? Because we're losing our country? Or is it the fact that he's a criminal that makes you feel so comfortable? And it's not that she left one comment, it's that she left several. And the comments were incredibly personal, implying that my father, who was incarcerated for the last 16 years of his life, was a criminal. Therefore, I am from a criminal family, and Donald Trump is a criminal, and it's the criminality that makes me feel so comfortable. And that, of course, I am an idiot and I am a disgusting human being. And it is because I have this level of poor behavior, because I come from a bad family, that I like a bad man. And to be clear, as I said in my response video, number one, I have exactly, my family's situation has been litigated and put out there 101 times. I have no shame in it. I have said what I have to say about who my father was. I have loved him for my entire life and he adored me. And I don't worry about that. Having somebody say mean things about my family doesn't bother me. But she took it a step further and continued to then argue with people in my threads. And she went after other wedding professionals and she started arguing with other people, calling them names, cursing, yelling, just behaving in a way that was so outlandish that I thought, my first thought was, oh my God, Marcy Bloom has been hacked. And I think that I knew, no, she hadn't been, but I hoped that she had. And so I reached out to a mutual and I said, hey, before I do anything, was Marcy hacked? And they were like, nope, sure wasn't. And I was like, okay. So I tried to go on in an effort to make this stop because when I opened threads, there were hundreds of messages. And it turns out that Marcy had blocked me. And I didn't understand that when you comment on a thread, that thread becomes your own. So you can block the originator and they can't see what you're doing. They can't interact it with, but you can continue. And I started getting messages on Instagram and text messages and phone calls. And I just said the only way for me to stop this is to respond via video. So I did. And that kicked up a whole new host of responses, including one where she basically says that I am irrelevant. Nobody knows who she is, who I am, which I find interesting because she's on my page. And talking about my looks, my glamour shot, which was taken by her friend and mine, Dennis Kwan. I think he's still my friend. He's shot weddings for me and we've always had a nice relationship. I think we do. I don't know. We obviously vote differently, but have always been very respectful of each other. And she went down a rabbit hole that was so unhinged that I called somebody and I said, I am really concerned and I'm going to ask that somebody maybe do a well check because it doesn't make sense. This isn't a child. This isn't a 14-year-old. This is a full grown woman. This is a professional. And to be behaving this way on a public platform is so the opposite of who we are as an industry. It's so the opposite of what we preach as being people who want to make the world a prettier place. It is the opposite of being the loving, tolerant, liberal left. It doesn't make sense and it is forever. It's you're dragging someone's family. The internet is forever. You are, demonizing a woman's looks. You are degrading another woman. It's forever. You're putting this out there and it's not going to go away. And this is not a good idea. Somebody needs to tell her to stop. And that didn't go well either. So I said what I said, I did what I did, and in a period of 24 hours, I received over 1,000 messages and eventually had to turn the phone off during election day, and Trump won. And there's a part of me that felt incredibly vindicated and felt like, okay, not only did we win in a landslide of electoral college, but we won the popular vote. So I'm not wrong. Half the country can't be racist. Half the country can't be misogynistic. Half the country can't be any of the isms or the istics or any of the things that were being called. And so maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's an opportunity for a conversation. Maybe there's an opportunity for something bigger. Maybe we have an opportunity to talk. I hope we do. And so we had this monumental win, and I got on a plane early the next morning, and I went to Mexico to do this wedding. And my focus was on my clients. And because I have a commitment to answering each and every email, text message, and DM personally, because I do not have an admin or an assistant, because our connection is absolute, I then get a message that says, have you seen this? I will no longer be attending any of her speaking engagements. And it's a conversation between, um, oh gosh, let's see who it is. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. About Joy Events, Renee Dallow and DJ Dazzler, basically saying that I should be kicked out of the industry because I would love to work on the inauguration, the governor's ball, and anything else. I find it funny and also quite sad, because aside from the fact that I have no personal relationship with any of these people, they don't know me, we don't have, they know nothing about me, and yet they would like to see me no longer be a part of the industry. They would like to see my platform be destabilized. They would like to see me unable to educate. They would like to see my business be, ruined. Um, they were, or at least Renee was at Wedding MBA, and she's totally free to say whatever she'd like. Freedom isn't free. Freedom of speech. I can say whatever I would like, as I'm doing here. I'm not free from the consequences of what I say. And if that consequence is that somebody on the internet doesn't like me, that's fine. But this idea that we are allowed to be keyboard cowards, which is what people are. When you go in a Facebook group and you talk about me, and this isn't one message, this is one of, I can't tell you how many screen grabs I received from people saying, this is what people are saying about you in this Facebook group, and this is what people are saying about you in this Facebook group, and this is what they're saying about you here. Okay, you sit behind a keyboard and you try to deplatform me, but you're not saying it to me, and you're not tagging me, you're blocking me, and you're hiding, and you're doing it behind closed doors. And that's really sad. And it's unfortunate. And I don't know if it's because there's a level of shame. I don't know if it's because there's a level of fear. I don't know what motivates somebody to hide, because that's not who I am. But overwhelmingly, of the more than 1,000 messages that I received, they are full of support. And I got a lot of them, and I'm going to pop them up. I'm going to try to put them right here if I can, of so many people in our industry that are conservatives, that are saying Trump 2024. So many people in our industry that are conservatives that are saying thank you for standing up and speaking out. So many people in our industry that are conservatives that are saying thank you for giving us a voice. Thank you for taking the hits. My business coach, Sean Lowe, who is not a conservative, always told me that leaders go first. And if that's what I'm doing, if I'm going first, then I will take the hits. But one of the things that has come up, and one of the reasons that I'm making this video, is because a lot of people have specifically asked what Engage's response to this has been. And I'm going to read some of the messages that I've got. But it's any of my business, but I would love to know what comes of this, because blank and I have both seriously considered reevaluating our investment with Engage based on the very same actions we've seen taken. And I can't imagine giving my money to people that allow speakers to publicly humiliate random small providers like that, let alone you. The irony is that all of us have to sit here silently while Marcy, Brian, Lori, and the crew promote fundraisers for Biden, which I honestly don't mind at all. And I promise you that I'm going to be sitting and engaged in a couple of weeks, and I have to hear all about how inclusive it is and how important it is to them. Anyway, I appreciate you. Now, some of these I'm paraphrasing just because there's some typos. I mean, Lori is the person who sent that planner a message to delete her on the non-morning post. I don't see how engaged can be cool with a speaker telling a random wedding pro nobody knows who you are. Why would anyone want to go to an event to be belittled as a nobody? She, Marcy, thinks that about everyone who attends, not just because she supported you. She just thinks she can say what she wants because she supported you. And that's the crux of the issue. You view people as less than, and you don't care how uncomfortable and humiliated you make them. They're talking about Marcy, not me. I just wanted to reach out and tell you how much I appreciated what you had to say, and it resonates with me so deeply. I also wanted to say that the way people responded to you is shameful, and I'm sorry it happened. As a conservative in the wedding industry, and as a blank resident, and as an engaged attendee, this is something that we've experienced too. A wedding planner friend of mine posted something totally irrelevant, and she received a message from the engaged mafia telling her off. It's getting out of control. So, because I've been a vocal supporter of Engage, because I have been somebody who has championed them, because I've been somebody who has spoken for them and really brought people into the community. I think that for years I was the only person from Las Vegas who went, and I really pushed for a lot of my local, wedding planners to go. I've pushed for a lot of the hotels to go. I'm really seen as a part of the community. And so people have asked, what has Engage said? And unfortunately, the answer is nothing. I at first thought to myself, well, maybe they don't know. Maybe Engage isn't aware of the fact that this is taking place, because truly I thought if Rebecca and Catherine knew, I can't imagine that nobody would reach out and nobody would say anything. I have to think that even privately they would say like, hey, we're sorry, like, we're gonna cool Marcy off, or like, give us a second, we're gonna do something. But they didn't. And so I checked my stories to see if there was a level of visibility, and there was. And so I said, let me give it a day and see if there's any response. And there wasn't. And so on October 31st, I wrote them a letter. I'm going to attach it at the end here. And I sent it to Rebecca and Catherine, and I also sent it to the Engage email, basically saying that I don't expect them to do anything. Their relationship with Marcy predates their relationship with me. And I'm not a victim. I'm a big girl. I can stand up for myself. But the level of hypocrisy when you say that you are an inclusive organization and that you are there for all voices, that organization must stand for the inclusion of conservative voices as well. If you say that you are going to represent everyone, then everyone has to include those people who do not agree with you. If we stand for freedom of speech, then that is the most important when someone says something that you don't agree with. If we have a conduct clause and we are going to be about anti-bullying, then we should not be bullying a woman who you feel isn't attractive. You should not be allowed to bully me, a fellow speaker in the luxury wedding space, for who my father is, who my family is, what my political beliefs are, what my religious beliefs are, or the way that I look. You certainly shouldn't be allowed to attack or degrade other people in the industry, people who pay $10,000 to come and to hear you speak, who pay $10,000 to be a part of this community, should not be told that they are irrelevant publicly online. And ultimately, he who fights monsters has to make sure that they don't become one. Because when you look into the abyss looks into you. And Marcy has become the thing that she hates. And if Engage chooses not to reach out, not to make a statement, not to address it in at least as public of a manner, at least to say, Marcy has a right to say what she wants, but we as an organization don't condone it, then there's a level of hypocrisy, and you are continuing to promote someone as a paragon who behaves in a way that does the thing that you claim to rail against. And so at Wedding MBA, I was asked no fewer than 200 times what came of this. The conference ended days ago. I've continued to be asked what came of this. I don't want to keep dragging it out. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I did really, really, really I'm not somebody who hides. I never have been. I never will be. I'm somebody who wants to be honest with you about who I am, what I think, what I believe. I want to be able to come here and say that if anyone wants to have a respectful conversation, I am always here to have that conversation. If you agree with me, I'm thrilled to have you. If you disagree with me, I'm thrilled to have you. If you feel seen through this process, if you feel like you have a home here because you have somebody with visibility who shares your beliefs, then I'm grateful for the opportunity to be that for you. And I want you to know that there is absolutely no shame in being who and what you are. If you are hurt or offended by the way that I've chosen to vote, then I would love to have a conversation, because I don't hate anybody. And I really think that open conversation is the best way to go. And if you are a client who is conservative leaning or not conservative leaning, if you're part of the RNC or any other organization and you're looking for a conservative planner, there aren't a whole lot of us out there that are public about it. But I am, and I would love to be able to partner with you. I'm going to put the email that I sent with the timestamp here. I'm going to read it out loud. I'm going to put some other items here because I think that we shouldn't be allowed to operate in the dark. And when we continue to try to cancel each other, and I'm going to cover up the people who supported me, because I don't want them to get any more hate. If you sent me a direct message and if you asked me to respect your privacy, I'm going to do that. If you posted publicly, God, I love you for it. And after this, we're going to return to our regularly scheduled programming, because I, for one, uh, really just want to go back to celebrating life, luxury, and above all else, love. I know I rambled, but I had a lot to say. Thank you for giving me a place to say it. A call for accountability within the Engage community. Dear Rebecca and Catherine, while I haven't attended Engage in the last few years, I've been a devoted member of this community for over a decade, both as an attendee and a speaker. I hope you'll indulge me and allow me to share a deeply disturbing situation that has been unfolding over the past 48 hours. I am deeply troubled by the harassment and personal attacks I've experienced from Marcy Bloom. She has repeatedly and quite publicly commented on my Threads account, implying that I am a criminal from a criminal family, and she has made derogatory comments about my character, intelligence, appearance, and relevance in the industry. She has initiated arguments with other wedding professionals, spewed hateful rhetoric, and then blocked me, preventing me from seeing or moderating these discussions, which continue to take place in my feed. These actions have been witnessed by countless colleagues, clients, supporters, as well as by my friends and family members. In less than a day, I've received over 1,000 messages from members of our community, all expressing shock, disappointment, and dismay over her actions. I recognize your longstanding relationship with Marcy, and while I fully support freedom of expression in all forms, this has crossed a line. I urge you to consider what it means when someone you've promoted as a representative of your community publicly attacks another professional like this. Marcy has been long given latitude in her remarks from the engaged stage, but this behavior has now moved beyond closed doors. While the world may not be watching, thousands in our community are. If you choose to stand by and do nothing, please know that by default you are endorsing this behavior. Every time you put her on stage, holding her out as a paragon of the industry, you are saying that it is acceptable to bully a woman for how she looks. Every time you celebrate her as an industry leader, you condone personal attacks on someone's family. Every time you place her in a position of influence, you are signaling to first time attendees that they are paying $10,000 to hear someone speak who would publicly call them irrelevant on the internet. Marcy's behavior is contrary to every standard of professionalism we champion in our industry. More importantly, it conflicts with the foundational values Engage and its leaders claim to hold dear. We cannot say we condemn bullying while simultaneously celebrating a bully. Continuing to promote Marcy Bloom as a speaker and industry icon is knowingly endorsing harmful behavior. While I respect Marcy's early achievements and contributions to the wedding industry, her current actions have caused real harm, fostering a toxic environment. I cannot tell you how many others have reached out to me saying that they now feel hesitant to participate in the educational community or post anything online for fear of retaliation, harm to their business, or being targeted by her vitriol. Please know that even as I write this, I don't expect anything from you. I am not a victim and am fully capable of fighting my own battles. My continued absence from Engage will not hurt you should your relationship with Marcy take precedence. But I love this industry and I respect what Engage did for me as I was building my business. Marcy's behavior is not only a direct violation of the Engage Code of Conduct, which I would hope applies to how two speakers publicly interact with one another, but it also undermines the spirit of your inclusion and diversity statement, which should strive to welcome and respect all voices, including those of conservative community members. Watching the institution's reputation be tarnished by such blatant hypocrisy serves no one, and I simply could not sit by quietly if this was something you were unaware of. You started a movement in our industry, creating a community where people who dreamt of doing big weddings in a someday sort of way could come together, learn, and grow. Together, the attendees built businesses, developed this industry, and earned respect. We were able to become something larger than ourselves that we could be proud of. Engage is the most powerful influencer in the luxury wedding business space. The message you send as arbiters of excellence, the voices you choose to amplify, and the messages you share matter. Every post, every promotion, and every moment given to someone on stage represents an endorsement of that individual's values and character. We don't need to agree on political positions, but we must treat one another with respect. All I ask is that Engage carefully consider what it says to our industry when you choose to promote someone who publicly behaves this way without repercussions. We cannot and should not allow the continued celebration of someone who uses her influence to attack other community members. Doing so not only condones but normalizes this behavior. He who fights monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. In the end, Marcy has become the very thing she rails against. It is my hope that you will consider this and take steps to rise above it. Thank you for taking the time to consider this. I wish you well, always.